there will not be a single piece of work that will ever compare to what I do in motherhood and the way that I raise my children. And I always say that at the end of the day, if what I do is raise two humans who are the best versions of themselves, and what I instill in them allows them to go out in the world and make an impact, their impact can be a million times greater than anything that I ever leave behind.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Amory. This is Leaning Into Being,
the podcast for mamas who know that real strength isn't just in doing, but in being.
Be you.
Be present.
Just be. Erica, our guest on Leaning Into Being today, Lauren Walsh, she has been an incredible powerhouse. She has been growing and developing brands for the world's most well-known athletes and artists for years. Her roster of talent includes names like Kirk Cousins, Terrell Owens, Jeremy Grant, Tim Anderson, Little Baby, Little Yachty, and so many more. But what I'm really excited to hear about is what's happening for her on the personal side.
Yes, Lauren has definitely overcome some gender barriers in women in sports. And you're right. I can't wait to hear all about her personal brand and what she has been doing around her authentic self and how she stays true to herself and continues to empower moms and entrepreneurs in this next phase of her journey.
Let's get started.
All right, Lauren, we like to start by grounding ourselves in the shared experience of motherhood. Where are you on your motherhood journey?
Yes. So my daughter is currently 6.5. You have to add the half. And my son just turned 4 a couple months ago.
Amazing. And talk to us a little bit more about your motherhood journey. Has motherhood changed your perspective on work and life? I recently read a blog post that you put up about your son's experience in the hospital. Share a little bit more with us about your motherhood journey.
Yeah. So it's always interesting sometimes because to me, I think 7 is a powerful number, and my daughter will be 7 in February. And I keep reflecting on how much my life has changed over the last 7 years. And the reality is, not only has my life changed from the standpoint of being a mom and a working mom, I'm a completely different person. And I will say that there's a lot of layers to that. Number one, becoming a mom really made me conscious of certain things, whether it's eating habits and health and wellness and all these things that are really important. But at the same time, especially having a daughter first and then having my son, I would look at her and think, holy cow, this is now so much bigger than me, because at the end of the day, I now have to raise you. And then my son came along, and it's changed me in a way that I don't know that any of my work, and listen, I've had really big jobs and really big titles, and I've worked with the biggest name celebrities and music artists in the game. However, there will not be a single piece of work that will ever compare to what I do in motherhood and the way that I raise my children. And I always say that at the end of the day, if what I do is raise two humans who are the best versions of themselves, and what I instill in them allows them to go out in the world and make an impact, their impact can be a million times greater than anything that I ever leave behind. And so it has changed my life. It has changed my perspective on everything. And it has 100% made me not just a better person, but honestly a better version of myself. Because I think when you have something that's rooted so much deeper, and my why is truly to get up every single day and leverage my story to impact other people, because my story of becoming a mother, which also included some really, really hard times. I had debilitating postpartum depression after my son. I mean, every single day I can still remember. Now it almost feels like when I say this, what I'm about to say out loud, it almost feels like I'm watching it as a movie. But I could put myself back in the car, driving my kids to school, and I'm gripping with 2 hands. I'm gripping that steering wheel because the voices in my head are telling me to drive off the side of the road. And I remember I would be like, okay, we can do this. Just put something on, call someone, put on a song, and just get to school. We can do this. And every single day for months, I had to battle through that and go through that. And I always say my son in that time saved my life, because he would cry. And, I love my kids. So even though I was like, the last thing I want to do is get out of bed right now, I am his source of nutrition and I need to get up and feed him because this is bigger than me. And the added layer of resilience started then. And then it, just kept getting tested and tested from there on out because then my son, a little bit before he was 2, all of a sudden he stops eating solid foods and all he wants are smoothies. And he couldn't quite talk at the time, but he would point to things and do that. And I remember I was like, what's going on? And I just kept going to the doctor and kept going. And she's like, it's just a phase. Don't worry. I'm like, this is not a phase. My kid is not the same kid. And I had to fight these doctors so hard. Listen, I'm someone who's already very convicted. I'm someone who already believes in advocating for yourself. But then when you have to advocate for a child who can't even speak and doesn't have the words, that takes it to another level. So I'm in there like fighting with these doctors. I'm ordering tests. They're like, well, but your insurance doesn't cover it. I don't care. Send me the bill. Like, do you think I care? We need to get these blood tests. And then to get to the point where my hunch, and I'll tell you, it's totally that motherly gut instinct. And my instinct was right. And we ended up in the ER, and he had a cyst the size of a golf ball that was literally pushing on everything, and he could hardly breathe. And like within 12 hours of that happening, they're cutting him open, taking it out. Then there was another surgery, like this intense 5-hour surgery. And again, like through all of that, it also then gave me again this other perspective of what really matters. Like I went through a major reflective point because I had a huge, huge campaign with my work launch at the same time that all this was happening. And I'll never forget, I was supposed to be in LA. And the night before we ended up going to the ER, I still remember I gave him a bath. I put him to bed and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can feel it in my gut. I'm like, you can't go. Like, you cannot get on that plane tomorrow. And I remember texting my boss and I said, listen, this may sound crazy. I know this is like the biggest thing and we have been working on this and I'm point on this like for the last couple of months. But I said, I will not forgive myself if I get on a plane tomorrow and fly to LA to launch this project and something happens to him. I will never forgive myself. And she was like, all good. I understand. We have enough people. Like, we'll figure it out. And literally the next day, we're in the hospital then for the next 2 weeks. So I just think, of course, with motherhood comes resiliency and you got to figure out, the time, the work-life balance and all the things. But forget all of that. The version of myself and who I am and who you all are meeting today versus who I was before is a completely different, more enhanced version and someone with a greater purpose and someone who, again, takes so much pride in what goes on in my household and the way that my kids act and the little humans that I'm creating. Because at the end of the day, again, like there's nothing that I could do that will compare to instilling the right values and systems in them to allow them to go out and enter into this crazy world that we live in.
Wow. I mean, oh my gosh, Lauren, like the tears, the goosebumps, all the feels are coming through. You're so true. We've had, as you know, Kanika Chatagupta on our thing. She calls that gut like your mom sense, like trust your mom sense. And it's so incredible that as mothers, we have that innate mom sense and in ourselves that we never thought we had. I want to, if we can, double click into your postpartum depression. You mentioned that. I know you've openly discussed experiencing that. What was that like for you? Tell us about what you did in your healing to get you through that season of your life.
I could talk about this all day, and this is also a big proponent of a lot of the work that I'm focused on now because I'll never forget. So I had my son September 2020. Not only am I battling my own postpartum depression, but we're in literally the midst of a global pandemic. Obviously, mental health and mental wellness is, shooting through the roof, depression, all the things. And we're experiencing it as a collective, but also on top of that, then I had this feeling. And the hardest part of that process was that nobody believed me. And I remember for the first couple of months, now, mind you, coming into this second pregnancy, I was determined, okay? I already had a meditation practice. I worked out. I did yoga. I journaled. I had a therapist. I did all the things. I was married, like we weren't married the first time around. We got married after we had our daughters. So I was like, oh, I got this. We have everything. And then a couple days, couple weeks, I was like, ooh, I am not okay because I also was more in tune with my body and I knew I wasn't okay. Finally, a couple months in is when I'm attempting to kind of go back into this new life, of work. And now schools are slowly starting to open up and different things are happening where we can get out. I can get out of the house. And that's when it was like, oh my gosh, like this is not okay. What's happening inside my head is not okay. And the hardest part that I think a lot of women go through is that for me, I was someone who on the outside, I mean, I had this amazing company and I'm working with athletes and celebrities. And one of my clients just wrote this New York Times bestselling book. And then on the inside, I'm like, I can't even function. And I remember Googling, I sat down, I still remember it was the night before my birthday, and I sat at my computer. And for the first time, I Googled postpartum depression. And I remember sitting at the computer, just like crying by myself. Like both my kids are sleeping. My husband at the time was traveling. He was always traveling for work. He's not there. I'm by myself. And I'm reading these articles and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm crying for two things. One, I'm just straight up depressed and so sad. But two, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it is. It was like relief of like, you're not alone. And immediately I start copying, pasting all these articles and I'm sending them to my family. I'm sending them to my husband. And I told them, I don't know how to completely articulate what's happening. All I know is that I'm not okay. But I think some of these articles will help you understand what's happening. And so I started sending these articles and no one's getting it. I'm thinking like the alarm's going to go off and people are going to show up at my door or fly in. I don't know. Nothing. And so then I'm like, well, let me take it a step further. Let me find some articles that husbands have written about their wives who've taken their lives. And I take these because I'm like, this is really serious. I'm really not okay. I started sending those. Again, nothing. I think the hardest part was like, one, I had called attention to it. I knew deep down, and listen, I am such an independent woman, but I knew that I couldn't do this on my own. And it was really confusing because the people I wanted to help me, and this is not their fault and I don't hold it against them, they couldn't understand. They literally couldn't wrap their minds around what I was going through. Not to mention, everyone's also going through their own something because it is still the pandemic. There's still things going on. I then eventually, I made an appointment. I go in. I remember I was so annoyed because she opened up her computer and she starts asking me these questions. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? She's like, oh, I have this survey. I'm like, wait, your survey? You're going to type in my answers and then your multiple choice survey is going to tell you whether or not I have this? I'm like, we go through it. She's like, okay, based on your answers, you're here and, you're eligible for medication and you can do this and that. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, no one's understanding what's going on. I'm by myself. I'm on an island trying to take care of these kids, trying to take care of myself, trying to run a company, pay the bills. Just give me whatever you can do. I want to take it. So she prescribes me this antidepressant and she's like, keep talking to your therapist, keep doing this. And I remember going home that night and I'm someone, listen, I love modern medicine. Modern medicine saved my son's life multiple times, literally saved his life, has saved so many members of my family. However, I don't even take Advil. I don't take anything. I just don't. And so when she gave it to me, I was like, ugh, I don't want to take this, but I also don't know what else to do. And I remember that night I sat down, I read the whole pamphlet. I'm like, why is the number one side effect increased suicidal thoughts when I already have these? I was like, this doesn't make sense. But anyways, I said, you know what? I'm going to pray so hard. I'm going to take it before bed. I'm going to pray. And depending on how I wake up in the morning, I will know whether or not this is the right move for me. And I woke up the next day and I felt so sick, like physically sick. My body was rejecting this thing. And so now I wasn't just battling with the mental side. Now I'm physically sick the whole day. And I'm like, okay, well, there's my answer. And I remember some people around me were very upset with me because they were like, no, this is what you need to do. I was like, no, first of all, you didn't want to help me. I tried to help myself. this is not the right answer. My body's saying no. So I'm going to go on this journey and I'm going to figure it out. And I committed so hard. This is where I got really good at being productive. I figured out how to get all of the work I needed to get done in my day. I don't maybe 2-3 hours. I spent every other waking minute that I wasn't feeding my son or taking care of my daughter, focus on myself. I tried every modality you can, meaning sound healing, different kinds of yoga, journaling. I would do these sessions where I would like write out the thoughts in my head on a piece of paper and then I would burn it. Like physically would like light a fire in the backyard in our fire pit and like watch it burn and would visually be like, those thoughts are gone. Like you're done. You're out of my head. You're gone. We're burning you. And I just kept doing these things, working with my therapist. She knew, I'm like, listen, I need you on board for this. I'm going to have to talk to you more than I was before. And I told her, I said, listen, I know I have regular suicidal thoughts, but I am someone who is so mentally strong. I was like, I'm not worried about anything actually happening or anything actually happening to my kids. I just have to figure out how to talk back to these thoughts and be able to move on from them. So it was a combination of all the things, like I said, working out, therapy, mindfulness, meditation, also really, really focusing on regulating my hormones. There are so many foods, teas, the time of day that you eat, like eating at the same time every single day to help regulate your cortisol levels and regulate your hormones. And these are all things that you can simply find on the internet. I had to simply sit down because I also couldn't go hire like a nutritionist, a trainer, all these things. So I literally researched all these things on my own, would just take all these notes and then I would test them. I'd try to figure out, okay, let me try ashwagandha. Let me see if it makes me feel better. Let me try upping my vitamin Bs. It was all, natural things. And I was so committed to it. But also, I'll never forget this. And if anyone goes through this, there's other options. I remember signing up for this support group and it was through the hospital where I'd given birth. And I remember showing up to this and I was so mad because one, no one turned their camera on, just me. I'm like, come on, if we're not going to meet in person, can we at least see each other? Because we're sitting at home all just depressed by ourselves with our kids. Number two, they let everyone go around the room and share what was going on. And then the call ended. Not once did anyone offer, here is something that you could try to do today. Hey, maybe you should go outside and go for a walk. Hey, have you ever heard of breath work? Do you know how to meditate? Hey, here's an app. Do a free 5-minute meditation. I remember emailing the lady after. I was like, first of all, very disappointed in you. There's no cameras. Second of all, why aren't you offering advice to these women? Like this is just crazy. And I realized that there's just not. And if anyone has it and you hear me on here, like please send me the resources. But there really are not a lot of positive resources to help women as they're going through the process. And I still think that there's totally this stigma that if you've gone through it or you're depressed, that you're weak and you can't handle all these things. But for me, it changed me in so many ways, obviously, making me more resilient, but made me so much more in tune with my body and healing my body through all the things that I call it now my secret sabbatical, because I say I went on sabbatical without having to like completely leave my life. Like every day, and still every day was my sabbatical. But the practices that I instilled in my life, I still do to this day. I just do them in different ways. But it was really building up my toolkit to be able to help myself, because I think the biggest thing that I realized, and this goes for so many things in life, is that really nobody's coming to save you. And I think that, yes, there are doctors and yes, friends, family, spouses, all these people, but no one can get inside our head or get inside our body. And so even if someone comes from the outside and really tries to come in and help us, I really think that the more that we can turn inward, I think the more that we can get in tune with ourselves. And I also think going through something like this, I also had to really take a big step back and ask myself, was it only postpartum depression? Was it only the hormone imbalance? And the answer is no. I was also in a really toxic marriage. I was in a really bad situation. I had zero work-life balance. I had some clients that were not in alignment with my values. And at the time, I wasn't saying at the time, it was like postpartum depression. Like that's what it is. I just had a baby, so I have to fit in this little box. But I also think that when we go through things, it's a good time to step back and also say, well, hold on. Are there other things? Are there traumas? Are there different things that we have been pushing down? And finally, everything has come to a head. And obviously, I'm not a doctor, disclaimer. But that was another big revelation for me too, was coming to terms with the fact that, yes, that was happening, but there were all some other things that I had to deal with. And I will tell you, I don't know that I would have faced them head on had I had a medication that was also helping, because the medication would have been treating a lot of my symptoms. And I don't know if I would have gone as deep on some of the other issues that I really, really needed to deal with.
Hi, it's Erica and Amory from Leaning Into Being, and we know growing a tiny human is no small feat.
Which is why we partnered with our friends at Motherhood Maternity, because every mama deserves to feel held, seen, and yes, comfy.
From belly to baby and beyond, their pieces move with you so you can focus on what matters most, being present.
You can shop their latest looks at Kohl's, Kohls.com, Amazon, Babies R Us Canada, and Motherhood.com.
Be you.
Be present.
Just be.
Erica, how hard is it to create content while running a company?
Let's be real, Amory, it's really hard. You've got the ideas, but turning them into consistent strategic content, that's a whole other job.
Enter the Content Catalyst from Share Your Genius. In just one 90-minute session, they help you turn your ideas into 3 months of high-impact content, videos, articles, social posts, and more.
We use them, we love them, and this is your sign to finally get your content off the vision board. Reach out and tell them we sent you.
Wow. Oh my gosh, what an incredible journey of self-discovery, self-reflection, growth. I mean, you were literally like clawing up the mountain by yourself and figuring all of this out. You learned to trust your intuition and like coming out of a time when you were feeling so overwhelmed and just so many things. I don't even know what to say besides wow. It's just so inspiring and incredible and powerful and motivating. I mean, for any woman who is facing any of those challenges and feelings of mental health issues and depression and all of that, I went through a period of really bad postpartum anxiety. And, I didn't figure out what it was until like years later when I was like, oh, because you're so in the midst of all of that angst and feeling and like you can't articulate what it is that you're feeling and why you're not feeling good. And it just seems like the lights have dimmed on everything and you're just like scared and angry and tired and all of those things all at once. So kudos to you. Like I can't imagine trying to do all of that on my own. And I'm going to ask you this question that we ask everyone, but you just talk through so many different modalities and things that you tried and tested and all of these things. We like to talk about your place of being in your authentic self through all of your self-discovery and the work that you did. Where did you find that your real place of center and your place of being really is?
It is being okay to just be with myself. So I was scared to be alone for so long. And I was scared to turn inward because I didn't like what was coming up. And I didn't like what my head had to say about things. And so now I will say that truly finding that sense of being is that I have become friends with myself. I have also gone back and done some work on healing the past versions of myself. And I've also grieved those versions of myself that have had to die, and are no longer here.
I think it's so inspirational for our listeners to hear what you're saying and your experience, and more so that connection that sometimes like you don't have to do motherhood in isolation. You're not going through this alone. And as you said, even though you felt like you were going alone, like how important has community been for you to mitigate some of that loneliness?
Yeah. I mean, it's been everything. And also it's been being really intentional with who that community is. And it's also been being open. That's my thing too, is I'll strike up a conversation, I mean, with anyone, whether it's the person, saying hi and actually intentionally asking, how are you to the person at the grocery store, because I just think about myself and we never know where someone is in their journey. We never know how lonely they are, and we never know what they're battling. We never know what they may want to go home that night and do, to themselves. And so for me, I take every single opportunity as a chance to connect with people because one, it really fills me up to have real, deep, genuine connections. Those are really my best people to this day. And that's also, I will tell you how I have found a lot of success in the work that I do because I don't go into anything just to get something out of someone. Even if I'm working on a brand deal and I'm pitching, I will get on a Zoom and genuinely say, tell me about yourself, like let's find a way to connect. And whether it's motherhood or we talk about postpartum depression or different things that have come up, and it has become something where I'm very intentional about making the time, for the people that we need to, and just checking on my people. I think when someone texts me and is like, you're on my mind, I'm like, that means the world to me. And the fact that you followed through with your gut and texted me, it's been everything. And I'm also constantly, I think, evolving it. I have this beautiful, beautiful community near and far. And I'm also always, again, like whether it's meeting a new mom friend at school or something, also always open to new opportunities with that as well.
Lauren, you've had an incredible career in a male-dominated field. Talk to us a little bit about like what it's been like to juggle all of that while you're facing these challenges in this male-dominated field. I know that you are really a powerful advocate for being authentic in your work as well. Like, how are you combining all of these things that you're learning internally into the woman that you are when you're stepping into the workplace?
I think the biggest thing for me that I did not have early on is that getting to know myself from the high highs to the low lows and the flaws and everything in between. And as I mentioned, becoming friends with myself, that has given me this added level of confidence that I don't mind walking into a room where I am the only female and being able to say, what you see is what you get. And at the same time, I also understand that not everybody is going to like that. And there are people who don't like that. There are people in the industry who don't love that I'm vulnerable or share certain things, or it's a big joke of like, well, she's probably gonna put it on her Instagram, and it's like, that's okay. We don't have to be friends also to be able to do business together. So I think that's the biggest thing. I used to try to show up as versions of myself that I thought those individuals needed or wanted me to be. And when I did that, not only was I inauthentic, but I lost my sense of self because trying to be something that you're not is really, really exhausting, especially when you're also trying to raise children and keep yourself in check. Like, I don't even have the time anymore to be versions of myself. But I will say that now it's at the point where it's just accepting not everyone's going to like it. And it really, really has given me that added layer of confidence where I know who I am, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at, and I also know what rooms that I want to be in. And I know that there are now rooms and even tables to sit at that, to be honest, even if I got invited, I probably wouldn't even show up to these days.
You've definitely accomplished so much. I can't believe we're already almost at time. I could just continue this conversation for hours with you. We kind of talked about what's on the horizon before we came on. Tell us about what you're working on personally and professionally. What's upcoming for you and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, so I think personally, I'm trying to undo 3 years of corporate life of being an executive in the entertainment industry. But at the same time, I'm very excited to be able to continue a lot of my work in branding and marketing, particularly with businesses. I have some amazing consulting clients that I'm working with now. And probably the two things that I'm most excited about for next year is that I have a Pilates studio that will be opening in the next 3 to 4 months. So I didn't just get certified, but doing things the way I do it always is I'm also opening a studio in a few months. And then I've also started the process to write and publish my first book.
Oh my gosh, so excited for all of those things. We have one last question that we always ask, and It's what's one moment that you can't believe you survived or you're still laughing about. You may have shared what you can't believe you survived. I feel like, is there something that like some crazy moment, it could be a motherhood moment, that you're still kind of laughing about, like, oh my gosh?
I think one thing that now I laugh about is that I had, speaking of like being a female in a male dominated industry, I had one of the most awkward encounters with these sports agents years and years ago. I had just had my daughter, was so lost in who I was, and I was in this meeting with them. They're asking me these basic questions like, "Oh, well, how old is your daughter and where do you live and what's your husband do?" and all these things. And it was like I had moved back in with my parents when I got pregnant. We weren't married, all these things. And I froze. I couldn't even have a conversation with these guys. And it's like so weird because that's just not who I am, my personality. But it also goes to show that I just was so lost. But the reason it's so funny is because then fast forward a couple years later, I ended up like running into this guy one night. It was at the NBA combine. I run into him and I'm like, "Oh, you remember me?" He's like, "How could I forget you?" He's like, "Everybody in the whole office still talks about them," because mind you, I didn't land their business, okay? He was like, "Everybody still talks about how that was like the most awkward encounter and we were so excited about you and what you had to present." And then it became this thing that like we became friends and like we laughed about it later. But yeah, at the time it was so awkward.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your story, for making the time to be with Amory and I and our listeners. We wish you all the best and can't wait to celebrate all the successes that you have ahead.
And thank you for being so vulnerable and open and sharing everything with us. We adore you.
Oh, thank you. I really don't know how else to be anymore. So this is how it is. But thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate this opportunity.
Mama, you are doing enough. You are enough.
So take a breath, lean in, and just be.
Be you.
Be present.
Just be.